Hey there, nerds! Welcome to the next edition of Two Nerdy Dads. With me, as always, is Jason Applegate. Say hey, Jason.
Hello, everyone. Happy Festivus. Festivus for the rest of us.
Exactly, and with that, let's get right to it.
Yeah, let's do that. Well, later in the show, Jimmy and I want to go over Festivus and talk about the various traditions. So I think that's a good way to kind of segue in the middle. We always start with news, though, and I think at the top of our news is the latest announcement on the film The Interview. So if you don't know this already, Sony had pulled The Interview because I didn't really read the exact reasons. So what I got, the gist of it was, so Jimmy, you can help me out here, is that North Korea was like threatening something against Sony for airing this, or what was the exact details of it?
Yeah, supposedly the hacks that had occurred within Sony that was revealing all sorts of insider information and even downloaded, basically stole 5 movies, I think it was, one including Annie, that had not been released yet, and then they were putting it out on the web, came back to, and supposedly the American FBI, CIA is saying, yes, it's the Koreans, North Koreans. I'm not 100% sure of that because the North Koreans can't do much right. But
well, they did take Annie, so from what I've heard of that movie, maybe that was the North Koreans. They're like, look, let's take this movie.
But supposedly they were going to do more stuff if Sony didn't stop the release of The Interview, starring Seth Rogen and James Franco, because in the movie they kill the leader. I can't remember his real name, but Kim Jong-il or Un, or I don't remember his name. I apologize. They're probably going to shut us down. Who knows? But yeah, and then on the heels of that, a lot of people are calling for, okay, let's bring out Team America and we'll show them. And Paramount stepped up and said, no, we're not doing that. We're not going to face the wrath of the North Koreans. Which it cracks me up. It's North Korea. I don't understand. So. But I do understand Sony's point of view because they did get a lot of information that was personal to their employees, not just Hollywood, not just actors and actresses and films, but all their employees. They got their Social Security information, payroll information, and they could release that very easily, and then those people would be hurt pretty severely. And those are, to me, bystanders. They're not a part of this. It's Sony as a corporation, so. I go back and forth on the decision to, quote unquote, give it to terrorists, but on this one, I'm not sure what to think. But I think Sony may have made a good call on the outset there.
Yeah. Did you suspect? I mean, now that they're actually releasing it, because I guess they the president even came out and said something about it. I just have this sneaking suspicion this was all a publicity stunt, and it's just like, because isn't The Interview now going to be more intriguing? I think more people are going to go see this movie now, maybe than would have before, because of all of the intrigue that's been created here. I don't know.
To be honest, Rainbolt and I talked about this last week, and I thought the same exact thing. I'm like, this is a publicity stunt, and then the big retailers, Regal and AMC. We're like, we're not going to show this film. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really help the cause, so I'm not sure. And then they pulled it from independent chains, and I'm like, I'm really not sure. All right, if they come out with video on demand, yeah, it's a stunt. I can totally see that. Everybody's going to download it, pay-per-view style, and they're going to make a ton of money because everybody's curious about this. And now they're allowing some independent theaters to show it. I know Alamo Drafthouse in Texas will have it. I'm not sure exactly who else. Nobody in Vegas, and probably nobody in Michigan either, I'm sorry. But I'm not sure. It really got to this point where if it is a publicity stunt, it got way out of hand because you brought in the president, FBI, CIA. If it is a publicity stunt, wow, kudos on one hand. On the other hand, you caused a lot of problems, Sony. This gives me some backlash from us, the fans.
Yeah, I think regardless, it was good for the movie, I think, or will be eventually, because however it's going to be dispersed to the audience, you've created a lot more intrigue for a movie that I think otherwise, wasn't going to do much. I think you're dealing with. I think Rogen's kind of jumped the shark a little bit. Like he's lost a lot of his appeal, and the buddy movies with Franco, are kind of along the lines of Adam Sandler and the stuff that he was doing too. So I think regardless, it's a good move in a way. So I don't know.
And ironically, our press screening was canceled the day before it was supposed to happen. So our nerds knew that it wasn't going to be really in theaters, but they were excited because they thought they were still going to see it. And they got canceled, and we were all bummed. But we reached out to a couple friends that have seen it, and surprisingly, they said it was a good movie. I was surprised by that.
Well, where it might have its strength is in the political satire, which, I mean, just like anything, it all comes down to the writing as to how good it is. But the fact that there's the opportunity for political satire might make it a good movie. Who knows?
I agree.
Cool. So regardless, it is going to be released at least in some areas, and then hopefully, and I would imagine it will get released, everywhere, if nothing else, to purchase on Blu-ray or DVD or what have you. So, other news, not tons, but one that kind of popped up and it might be somewhat underwhelming, I suppose, is Marvel's casting of Mike Colter as Luke Cage in the Netflix series Jessica Jones, I think it is. And I reached out to you and said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And what was your response to me? Because it amused me.
My response was, I don't know much about Luke Cage other than his tie-ins when he's in Daredevil comics. And then I looked up the actor, and the only time I may have seen him in something was an episode of ER. And that's not to say he hasn't done much. It's just I haven't seen the things that he has done. Zero Dark 30, Salt, Men in Black 3. I haven't seen these things, so I don't know. $1 Million Baby. So he might be amazing. I don't know. I mean, he's got his own show, Luke Cage. Eventually they'll all meet up, supposedly. Right. But other than that, I don't know anything.
Which I thought was amusing, that both about the character and the actor was kind of similar. So maybe it's very fitting. I'm the same. Like, I only know Luke Cage from like in the Avengers. I had a little bit of Hero for Hire. There was a '90s comic that came out, and I remember getting a couple issues of that. And it is very, very '90s. So if you want to find that, I'm sure you can find it in the quarter pile at your local comic book store of back issues of stuff that just is taking up space. But I think he's a pretty cool character. If you look at the history of Luke Cage, I wrote about him when I did a couple years ago, Black Superheroes for Black History Month, and he was one that I featured, and how he was sort of cutting edge, but yet he still was sort of stereotypically portrayed. But a lot of people praised it because of it being like black exploitation, kind of like Shaft, where it takes these things and pokes fun at them, but in a way that is admirable. I'm not sure. I couldn't really wrap my hand around it because I wasn't, I haven't read any of the actual episodes. But regardless, you have a black character who is the central figure of a comic, and in this case, eventually a television series, which I think is cool. And this black character, unlike, say, Black Panther from Marvel, is obviously black. Another one you could use is Spawn. You don't realize that Spawn's black, except for that if you see what he looked like before he became Spawn. And same with Black Panther. If he doesn't have his mask on, you don't know maybe that he's a black man. But Luke Cage, it's super obvious and it's right at the forefront. So I think that's cool. The only other thing that I saw about this that was sort of a response of criticism is a lot of people wanted Terry Crews for the part. So definitely would be a much more recognizable name. Thoughts on that?
I think I love Terry Crews. I think he's hilarious. He does a fantastic job in of course I forgot the name of Brooklyn 911 or 991. I love him on that show. I loved him on Everybody Hates Chris. He's good stuff. I almost think he's too big and bulky to play Luke Cage. That might sound weird because obviously the comics are always like, "Argh!" But I think he's just too big to play him. But I don't know. I can't say he wouldn't do a good job because I loved everything he's done.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in like a really serious role. That's the one I would sort of question until I saw that, which doesn't mean that he can't do that. But definitely, what we've seen him in so far has all been comical. And so I question whether that would fit or not. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it's great. I'm excited for all the next Netflix series, and when they come out, I'll be definitely one of the first to watch those seasons for sure.
Yeah, I love what Netflix is doing. I'm so excited that they have these Marvel franchises. And I understand where DC's going and keeping them separate. I love how Marvel is integrating, and I'm assuming they're going to be integrating this world too into their movies and their TV and all that stuff. It's fantastic how it's all in the same place. I love that. It's the same world. It's so cool.
Yeah, I think that's a strength that they definitely have, where they tie them all in together. It gives them this opportunity to basically feature these D-list sort of superheroes, that aren't the mainstream ones in a way that works. And I think that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So, looking forward to that, and the other news that we have, and the only other news, unless you have something else, Jimmy, that you add to it, is Wonder Woman movie possibly not approved. That was at least the title of some articles that I had read, and I think it was all, the sky is falling kind of a thing going on here, because what I guess had happened was the director, whose name I sorry escapes me, who is going to be doing the solo film, in an interview had said that she can't talk about it because, nothing's official yet and so forth and so on. So a lot of people were sort of panicking, like, well, wait a second, does that mean this isn't greenlit? Does that mean that this is not going to happen? What's going on here? And I was one of them, and I was like, that would be a shame. And I think it all stems from our, DC's reputation in basically goofing things up and not being on top of things. I mean, we should have had a Wonder Woman movie for some time now. So I think it's sort of stemming from that. But Wonder Woman fans basically just hang tight, because from what I read and understand, until they have an official script, they don't officially greenlight something. So right now, from what I researched, there are basically 6 scripts out there rumored, and until they really narrow that down and then cast the movie, nothing is official. But we should still see a Wonder Woman solo film by, I believe it was 2017 is when it's supposed to come out. So
if you're shocked that DC screwed up their press releases and media. Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm not shocked at all. You can't do anything right. It's like, even if it's not true, don't come out and say it, because eventually it could be true. But at the last minute, if it doesn't happen for some reason, just like, oh, I'm sorry, we're not ready yet.
Yeah.
I just cannot believe the way they're handling their news.
Yeah, I don't know if this was just an instance of the director just sort of slipping up and saying something, and then people just ran with it, and to get people to click on their article, they just put it in the title of Wonder Woman movie not greenlit officially, or what have you. But yeah, it doesn't seem like DC is on top of things yet again. So big surprise there.
Like ever.
But
we weren't going to talk about this, but
okay.
have you seen the DC? Did we ever talk about this DC comic covers? We talked about that last week, didn't we?
Yeah, the DC, the cool variant covers was cool. There was something though that I just saw that is worth mentioning, since we've been talking about Marvel and DC, and have you seen the fan film that was sort of clipped together? That was Marvel versus DC.
You know what? I've seen it pop up a lot. I haven't watched it yet.
It's pretty clever. Like, they do a pretty decent job of taking clips from the movies that are already out, obviously, and then some fan film stuff that they grab, and even some stuff from the what was that Justice League video game where they all fight each other? The Mortal
Injustice.
Kombat one. Yeah, that's it. Injustice. Like even some clips from that. They take some clips they must have gotten from the Wonder Woman pilot, because I believe it was the Wonder Woman actress from when they filmed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and they clip them all together and make it appear as though Thor is fighting Superman, or Batman is fighting Iron Man, and so forth. And it was pretty cleverly edited to make it look somewhat plausible. There's a couple of parts where like the shield is thrown and it looks really like they put their own shield in there or something, and it looks really cheesy, but I thought it was kind of interesting. So if you're curious and you just want to click on something that's kind of amusing, that might be a way to go.
That's very cool. There are 2 bits of other news that I looked up. Star Trek 3 seems to have found a director, as we have talked previously. J.J. Abrams obviously left to go do Star Wars Episode 7. And there was sort of this hole left behind with Alex Kurtzman, and of course the other name escapes me. And it was weird the direction they wanted to take the franchise. The most notable one was bringing back the original James T. Kirk and William Shatner. It was another time travel thing, I believe, which is awful in my opinion. But,
yeah.
Paramount found that's stupid. Let's go a different route. And it looks like Justin Lin is going to be directing Star Trek 3. He's most famous for Fast and Furious and Fast and Furious 6. He will also be on from what I understand, the next Jeremy Renner Bourne film. Interesting choice, I have to say. What do you think, Jason?
I never watched the Fast and Furious movies.
Whoa, what state are you in?
I know, right? Like, it's super popular.
Have to watch car movies in Michigan?
You would think, but I must be able to like bypass that since I'm originally from Colorado, so I get away with a lot of things here. Maybe I don't know. So I can't really speak to it. I just wonder, are they going to like race the Enterprise, like and flip it around and do all that crazy stuff that they seem to do?
I would love to see it all decked out. You have the lights going around the sides, and
right. And Uhura can be like half naked, sitting on the cover, the hood of the Enterprise or something like that. I mean, because from the previews, that seemed to be what Fast and the Furious was just cars driving around, crashing into each other, and half naked women. So nothing wrong with those 2 things, I suppose, but it doesn't really seem like there was much substance. But maybe I'm just being, somebody who hasn't seen the film, so I'm being prejudiced against them. I don't know.
I will unfortunately open a can of worms here.
Uh-oh.
I've seen them all, and they got really good the later the franchise went on. As weird as that sounds, like Fast and Furious is okay. Faster and Furiouser, or whatever the second one was, Too Fast, Too Furious, was not awesome. Tokyo Drift was okay. But then when they came back with Fast and Furious, and then Fast and Furious 6 or Fast 5, whatever, man, they've gotten good. Don't get me wrong, they are ridiculous. I mean, they are Michael Bay ridiculous. But they're entertaining.
Huh.
I don't know how that can translate to a Star Trek universe where we know the world, we know the characters, and you don't necessarily put Michael Bay in that. I don't know. But for what Justin Lin has done and been asked to do, he's done a great job with that Fast and Furious franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I'll reserve my judgment. He's got good material to work with, to start with, because Star Trek is an awesome franchise. You have these characters that I feel like in the reboots they have really made engaging. Kirk is certainly somebody you root for, and the friendship with Spock has always been central to the storyline, whether it was the television series or the movies. And I think they've done a good job of reestablishing that. And so as long as he doesn't, throw that to the wayside, which I don't see how you could, it could be good. And I think maybe Abrams leaving it is a good thing because of all that time travel-y stuff that we were getting very Doctor Who-ish with all these alternate realities and blah, 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 that, maybe it won't go in that direction. And yes, please, no William Shatner. Like, let him be where he is.
I put the finger across the throat.
Why do you do that?
It's over your head. Nothing goes over my head.
I would catch it. And maybe that would be, good to have that kind of sense of humor, implemented in there as well. Maybe that's what he'll bring, is sort of a Guardians feel to it. I don't know.
That'd be funny. And the last bit of news is Kim Dickens has been cast on the sequel, spin-off of The Walking Dead, which I just learned a week ago is going to take place in L.A. At
Really?
first I was like, oh, come on, can't you pick somewhere cooler? But then I'm like, wait a minute, awesome, let's destroy L.A. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if you don't know, Kim Dickens was Matt Saracen's mom in Friday Night Lights. She was also in Sons of Anarchy, which I love that movie. Gone Girl, a whole bunch of stuff. So, A Blind Side. So she's been around. She's one of those actresses where you don't know her name, which I didn't know her name, and then you look her up like, oh man, she's everywhere. Okay, cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I love Walking Dead. Huge fan of that. So having another spin-off series, I think, is cool, and I'm surprised it hadn't happened sooner, to tell you the truth. So
I'm stoked because I'm so tired of fanboys. Oh my God, it didn't happen in the comics or whatever, and I'm like, shut up. I don't care. It's entertaining. So to be able to take a universe that we know, set it somewhere else that has nothing to do with any comics that have ever been released, awesome. Let's do that so we don't have to feel like we're tied to a storyline that's already been told.
Right. Well, and hasn't the latest thing, okay, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the mid-season finale by now, then, skip forward a little bit here. We'll do the thumbs up thing. We'll just remember this time.
Sure we will.
Was that Beth dies, and I'm sure everybody's seen that anyway, so I don't even know why I'm
Well, let's be honest, AMC spoiled it before it was even aired. So.
Oh, was it really? Oh, I didn't realize that, so I was under
They put a meme out on Facebook telling everybody that Beth died, and it's like, oh, thanks.
Yeah. Well, and it wasn't terribly shocking. I mean, you kind of saw it coming in the episode. But apparently a bunch of people are upset, and they want to bring her back, and I heard some rumor that, the creators were actually thinking about, let's bring her back. What? Why would you... I just don't get that. I don't know how...
She got shot in the head, so she can't even come back as a zombie.
Right. It's just, if they do that, that's just dumb. I don't get it. There's yes, you should, respect your fans and, try to appease what people want to see. But come on. It can't get in the way of storytelling.
Unless they're doing something like they're going to do flashbacks to scenes that occurred when she was still alive.
Maybe.
Or dream sequences. Or maybe they'll come close to a body of water and she will literally jump over a shark to signify the end of the show.
Well played. So you really feel Walking Dead's jumped the shark, have you?
If Beth comes back, I do.
Oh, okay. That's fair. That is fair. I do have to say, though, that it's it makes me wonder how much longer it can go on, and maybe the spinoff is, kind of signaling that the regular Walking Dead's gonna, come to a close fairly soon. So
that could be because what do we have? 3 original actors and actresses? Is that all now?
I don't.
Daryl. We have Rick.
Yeah.
We have
the son.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then we have the older woman. I can't remember her name.
Yes.
With Daryl.
Yes. That's right. So 4
okay.
of the original from the very first season.
And no offense to Rick Grimes, man, he's looking haggard. We just watched Love Actually, and he looked young and all that. And I know this is a while ago when he filmed Love Actually, but he's looking really worn down in Walking Dead. And it's been how many years now? What season was this? 5?
I think this is 5. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how much longer he wants to do it.
I would imagine, that all of them would like to go on to something else eventually. They don't want to get stuck in the, in that world and not be able to do anything else with their careers. So. Who knows? But hey, I'm gonna enjoy it while it's going on. That's how I feel about that. So cool. Okay. Well, good news. Awesome. Let's move to Festivus then. Festivus for the rest of us. And if you don't know what that reference is, then for shame, first of all. And you I don't understand how you could not know what that is. We would, go ahead.
I've seen it getting more and more popular every year, and I mean the show hasn't been on for at least 10 years.
Man, yeah.
So I mean, I know it's in reruns and stuff, but I'm like, wow, I wonder why it's picking up speed now. No, it was one of the best episodes Seinfeld ever did. It was hilarious, and I believe, if I remember correctly, it was based on one of the writers. This is what their family actually did.
No way.
They threw it on George's family the Costanzas to carry on this tradition.
Oh, that is great. That makes it so much better if it's actually a thing that some family did. That is amazing. So, in honor of Festivus, which actually is today, December 23rd, is officially Festivus. In honor of that, we are going to follow some of the traditions. Now, we're not going to get out the Festivus pole, which is I love that part too, because it's the opposite of the materialism of Christmas. It's just a single pole.
I hate tinsel.
That's right. I hate tinsel. So aside from that, though, we are going to discuss feats of strength. We are going to air our grievances, and then we will declare in the way that Kramer does a Festivus miracle. So we'll explain each of these just in case you're not in the know before we actually discuss them. But let's have it. Feats of strength. Let's start there. Feats of strength, of course, is how, and we actually should probably end there because that was how Festivus ended. Was you had to wrestle. You had to wrestle. What did George have to wrestle his dad? And Festivus wasn't over until he pinned him or beat him.
Exactly, with Mrs. Costanza in the background. You got him, Georgie!
That's right. That's right. Just great. So, feats of strength for this year. What would you declare to be a feat of strength for 2014? Whatever, comic-wise, anything in the nerd popular culture.
I'll throw out two, and I know you sent me a list, so I hope I'm not stealing yours.
No, it's all good if you do. That's okay.
I'm going to go with the little engine that could, and that's Guardians of the Galaxy. It was a little guy, and before it came out, everybody was like, this movie's going to fail. It's going to be Marvel's first failure. Nobody knows these characters. There's no way. It's in space. Who cares? And boom, Guardians of the Galaxy comes out. $1 billion later. It's amazing. Awesome storytelling. Please, let's understand that, DC. It's storytelling. Amazing acting. Chris, dude, awesome. Chris Pratt, amazing. I love that dude. He's awesome on Parks and Rec, and the fact that he worked as hard as he could to get in that shape to play Star-Lord, awesome. I didn't know these characters at all. I've never read the comic book. I really didn't care that much about it. So watching the movie was one of the first times since they really delved into the comic books that I was a newbie, fresh. It was awesome. I loved it. So I've got to go feats of strength, Guardians of the Galaxy for movies. And for comic books, I want to give a huge shout out for Scott Snyder. This dude is amazing. The fact that he can just take Batman to new levels, the comic book Batman to new levels, after what we've seen with it in the past, with The Dark Knight Returns, the Batman Year One, and stories galore, Nightfall, and he just makes it fresh. Almost every storyline he comes out with, I'm constantly amazed by him. And if they do Dark Knight Returns 3 with Frank Miller, he earned it. Amazing. I love that dude. Feats of strength.
Yeah, definitely. I have to say that I was a believer in Guardians when it came out, when I heard it was coming out. Saw the previews for it, and I turned to my wife. I said, "This is going to be awesome." I'm like, "This is going to be like probably even better than Avengers." And she looked at me like I was crazy. She was like, "What are you talking about? That looks so stupid." I'm like, "I'm telling you, it's going to be huge." And sure enough, it was. And I think it was, it goes back to what you were talking about. It's strong writing. It's a good story. I think what benefited it was the fact that the characters were not that well known, and so you could do what you wanted with those characters without people getting all up in arms about things. And Marvel had already built that fan base that they knew that they could draw upon, because people are just going to go see it because it's a Marvel movie and they're going to give it a shot, and whereas otherwise it may have flown underneath the radar. So, yeah, definitely agree with that as a feat of strength. And yeah, that was on my list. You saw that one.
Yeah, I just scrolled back up. I'm like, awesome. Just stole it.
No, I mean, it seems it really is the obvious one, for feats of strength. So, I'm trying to think off the top of my head of another one that I could throw out there. Maybe I would say Flash as a feat of strength. I think for it being a spin-off of Arrow, it's done well for itself, and I think its strength has been that while it's spun off of Green Arrow or Arrow, it was its own thing. It took it to in a different direction, and I think that was pretty cool. So I think you could say feats of strength there, and then you might also, to stick on the television side of things, say Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. finished strong with their Hydra season, and then even their first half of their next season, this latest season, has been pretty strong. I think a lot stronger than the first season. So
I agree. I'd like to throw one more out because I certainly wouldn't want to go against these guys. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was a fantastic movie, considering it's a sequel, and even the 8th sequel or whatever in the franchise. Man, that was a great movie. I want to see more of Caesar. Fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's one that maybe a lot of our listeners haven't actually seen, because I felt like it kind of flew under the radar a little bit. So give it a chance. I think we talked about it on a previous podcast, and I really liked the political commentary that it had.
Definitely.
So cool. All right, let us now air our grievances. Airing of grievances. This is where you just get to shout at whoever you want to and just tell them what you think and why they have completely let you down.
Why don't you start so I don't steal again?
Sounds good. I should start with you for stealing it. How many times in this show have we been on the same page, though? It's been crazy.
Yeah, but that's the sad part. This time you sent me a list.
I did send you a list, but that's okay. It's not the first time someone's ignored what I've shown them or written to them. No problem. No, I start with Marvel canceling She-Hulk. I am so ticked at you, Marvel, for doing this. Here you have this great female character who has, I think she's just so unique. And if you don't know how I feel about her, check out the article I wrote about She-Hulk as a character, where I go back to, her origins way back in the 80s to, how she appeared in the 90s, and then now with the newest She-Hulk series. And you've got this great female character. You're doing great things with her because she's not just, breaking open heads and hulking out all over the place, but she is a lawyer. And a lot of what the storylines were these was that side of things, and how she would use her mind and how she was a professional. And it was such a great opportunity for storytelling and to say something about what female superheroes can be, because I think She-Hulk is can stand for that in ways that other female characters can't, or it's not as accessible to them, and they're canceling it after 12 I think issues. And so I'm just kind of annoyed with that, and I wonder how many more of their female solo titles are going to get canceled. I'm hearing rumors that Storm's got a limited future. Captain Marvel is another one that's been great that I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that one, so hopefully it's not going that way. But you had all these that came onto the scene. Black Widow was another one, and Spider-Woman now is coming out. And is pretty new, and I just sort of wonder, are they all going to follow this trend and end up just being out there for just a dozen or so issues and then canceling? So I'm ticked about that one. And then the other airing of grievances is Peter Jackson. Peter Jackson, congratulations for becoming the new George Lucas, because the one good thing I have to say, we just went and saw the last Hobbit movie, and I'm sure anybody out there who is a Lord of the Rings fan or a Tolkien fan realizes that dragging The Hobbit out for 3 whole movies was motivated by nothing but greed. Nothing but greed. And my wife, who is a huge Lord of the Rings fan, loves the original movies. Now we have the shared experience of realizing how prequels can completely destroy a franchise, because she enjoyed them. She enjoyed watching them, but totally realized how utterly just they did not even compare to the original Lord of the Rings movies. And Peter Jackson hates my bladder. That man does not know how to end a movie. I'm sitting there and I'm like, please just end it. I have a huge, large Coke sitting on my bladder right now. This is driving me nuts. Will you just end this story, please, so that I can leave and use the restroom? But and then my biggest complaint about the movie, about the 3 movies really, was I just didn't buy the whole Dwarven fever storyline. I don't know. Have you seen these yet, Jimmy? The Hobbit movies?
I have erased any knowledge of Lord of the Ring movies, Hobbit movies after Return of the King. I hated that film. It was awful. No, I had never read the book, so it was a surprise to me. How you can build up Frodo as your main hero, have him pass out just before accomplishing the heroic act, and Samwise Gamgee is the one who does it.
Now,
and then Return of the King? What? He didn't do anything. It was all the ghosts he recruited earlier. Crap. Crap. I've not seen a Peter Jackson movie since, and I'm not kidding.
That is hilarious that you totally just ripped on Return. I love Return of the King, but I read the books, and so if you've read the books, you realize all along it is Sam that's the real hero, and part of what Jackson's doing is paying tribute to the common man, because he was in the World War, the Great War, and noticed how the men in the trenches who were just common men were really what won the war, and what who fought the dirty fights and so forth. But
it was remade in a book called Throne of Atlantis, Aquaman. Read that. Skip Return of the King. It's stupid.
Yeah, but back to The Hobbit and my airing of grievances for The Hobbit. Just too long, and it drug it out. And the part of the storyline that bothered me was they have this new elf character who's this female elf, and so she's not in the books at all, which I can get over that. Like, hey, yeah, let's show a strong female character. I'm all about that. That's cool. But they make her like in this very cliche Romeo and Juliet relationship with one of the dwarfs. So that's why I call it like dwarven fever. Like she's just all of a sudden there's this dwarf and she's just like, ooh, different. And yes, right. And it just does not work. I don't think anybody's ever engaged in it and rooting for it. So I don't know. That is my airing of grievances. So you're up, sir. Air your grievances.
Well, the first one, I said I wasn't going to do it, but I'm going to do it. I'm from Cleveland. And my Cleveland Browns, man, what are you doing? We have an amazing tradition of football in Cleveland. During the 60s, 50s, amazing. We won so many championships. I believe we won more championships than any team yet has won Super Bowls. That's unbelievable. Yet we have not been to a Super Bowl yet. Not, we haven't been to a Super Bowl in 10 years. No, we've never been to a Super Bowl. Ridiculous. Art Modell, you started this. Got a problem with you even though you're dead. And currently, I don't know what the franchise is doing. I like some of the moves. I think we have a great defense. Our offense sucks. Kyle Shanahan doesn't know how to call a play. Fix it now.
Can I just do this? I don't know if the camera's on. It's only on me if I'm talking, but there you go. That's your next problem, Johnny Money. So I hear your grievances.
I don't know if I've told the nerd world here. Nobody likes Jason.
This is true. This is true. Hey, I live in Michigan, where the Detroit Lions are right there with your Cleveland Browns. So I hear the same kind of grievances, although they're all fired up and excited.
Detroit is one of the other teams that has never been to the Super Bowl.
Correct.
You have no idea what I'm feeling because you are a Denver Broncos fan.
Yeah, although yeah, let's just not even speak of that.
I dare you to. I dare you to, sir.
No,
Stupid
we're
John
not talking about
back-to-backs. Leave. Anywho, the next one is more nerd-related. It's Sony. I just this past, what was it, 2 months ago or so, got to see Amazing Spider-Man 2. Holy crap, that was awful. Awful. You have one of the best characters in the comic book history, and you made that? You have amazing actor, an amazing actress as your leads, and you made that. He has I would say probably the second best rogues gallery in comic book history, next to Batman. And you use those villains to do that, and you make them look like that? Sony, you are awful, and I hope the rumor that you're going to team up with Marvel is true, because you suck.
Nicely done. Nicely airing of grievances. And so the last tradition of Festivus comes from Kramer, who declares that there is a Festivus miracle. Something ridiculous happens that's this coincidence, and he just declares it must be a Festivus miracle. So Festivus miracle would be something that is sort of like, fitting. So mine is DC announcing their movie plans as this sort of like, oh, look, because I think, and we've talked about this, before, that it's, they don't know what they're doing. They're way behind Marvel. Marvel has just been creaming them in the way that they've set up their cinematic universe, and it's sort of like, oh, look, all of these movies have come out. And remind me, didn't the DC announcements come after Marvel did all of theirs about, the Infinity War and all that stuff, or was it vice versa?
Well, it was weird. It was leaked online on a blog pretty accurately. Then Marvel did their huge announcement correctly, and then DC put a press release out literally on paper and was like, yeah, here's what it's going to be, which was basically the blog information we got, back in July.
It's a Festivus miracle. DC is doing Wonder Woman and Aquaman and Flash, and we're so sort of like, okay, all right, surprise. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. How about you, a Festivus miracle?
Well, I've got a couple. I have to go to another Marvel franchise that has nothing to do with Marvel, with Fox, and say that the latest X-Men movie was awesome. I thought they just reclaimed the franchise, and Days of Future Past really fixed a lot of the errors that were in that franchise and made it all better, and I'm excited to see where they go. This is not to say that they won't screw it up, but to me, it's a miracle that they fixed it. So that was great. Sons of Anarchy finished its run, and it was kind of going downhill. It could have definitely gone in a bad way. And Festivus Miracle, I thought the final episode summed up the show beautifully, perfectly, made everything make sense. Loved it. Great way to go. And finally, I've got to go with the Dark Horse comic book has been doing Prometheus, revisiting that world, specifically Prometheus Fire and Stone. I hated the movie Prometheus. I thought it was an awful movie, dragged on, asked more questions than it answered. So to me, it's a miracle, Festivus miracle, that Dark Horse could put together a storyline within this world that was good and really got me interested in what's going to happen.
Cool. Cool. Well, we are going to move on to our Christmas, aspect of the show that we've been doing lately. However, just to give our listeners that may be listening in live, we had originally planned on doing a little bit of an interview with someone who had created a fan film that is Batman versus Dexter. And so we may have that gentleman, Alexander, joining in with us. So if he does, we'll kind of stop where we're at and we'll move over and go ahead and conduct that interview. If he doesn't, then that can be something that maybe we look forward to for next week, and all our listeners out there can go and check out his fan film. It's called it's Batman versus Dexter. So you can check that out and then join us next week if we don't get to it this week for that interview. But I've tried to see if he can join us. I sent him the link, so don't know if that's going to work now that we've already started, but we'll give it a shot, and if he jumps in, we'll just stop what we're doing, but otherwise we'll just keep going. So, Christmas traditions. We've been doing this for basically the month of December, a Christmas tradition or a Christmas story. And so, Jimmy, I want to start off with mine, but by asking you a question first.
Sure.
When do you put out your presents, and when do you do your stockings? Like, how do you go about doing that?
Well, I know you and I are a little different with the Santa Claus, and that leads into a lot of why we do what we do. Presents that are from family go under the tree whenever we sort of receive them or get them. And usually Allison and I do a tradition of the Christmas Eve night. We'll wrap all the presents we haven't wrapped and then put them under the tree, whether they're Santa Claus or family. But as we get presents in, we'll put them under the tree. But Santa presents don't go under the tree until Christmas Eve. Stockings go up Christmas Eve so the kids can still fully believe that Santa Claus is the one who did all that stuff.
Yeah, no doubt, and that seems to be the way to go. And like I've said before, we don't do the whole Santa thing, and so, but we do the same thing. We still do all the gifts, the night of, and I think that is a cool tradition because you get the excitement of all of a sudden that morning, boom, there's all these presents that weren't there before. And that's pretty exciting. Obviously, it makes it trickier as parents because you gotta have a hiding place of where you're hiding the things before they're all wrapped up and stuff. But I don't know about you, but we tell our kids where that is, and we're like, you cannot go in there. And if you do, and you see that, then it's going back to the store. So we threaten them with that. It goes back. But that's, it takes the whole, Santa thing out of it. And maybe I'm just being mean by that, by look, it's here. Here's the cookie jar. Stay away. But the one thing
that's cruel, dude.
It is. I'm a mean person. My kids are going to have to, ask anyone. They have no imagination because they don't believe in Santa, and they're going to have to go through all kinds of therapy later. But, hey, that's what parents are for, right? No. The one thing that we do actually do early, at least at our house, is fill the stockings. And we'll put a little bit of things in the stockings kind of as we get them. And my parents did that when I was a kid, and I always liked it because it sort of built up the excitement of the approaching of the holiday. Was you started to see, and you could kind of go over and sort of feel the stocking and be like, ooh, look at how full it's getting, and yours is more full than mine, and that's not fair, and all of that stuff. But so that's been something that we did do ahead of time, and I don't know, I sort of like that aspect of it. But again, not anything that needs to be, I'm not advocating that for anybody or anything, but just was wondering about it.
That's cool.
How about you? What's the tradition or storyline that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I think it's a weird one now that I'm grown up. I didn't really question it as a kid, and maybe this is not weird. Maybe everybody does this, but in our stockings as a kid, and I've continued with my kids, we always put an orange and a quarter. The orange was explained to me and I have no idea if this is true. I've never looked it up. My dad could be lying to me for all I know. Goes back to our Swedish roots, and we're celebrating winter solstice. I have no idea why an orange and winter solstice go together, but whatever. So yeah, we got an orange in our stockings. I think it's more closely related to all of our Christmases were spent in Fort Myers, Florida, and it was pretty easy to find oranges. Who knows? The quarter, that was never explained to me. I don't know why we got a quarter. But yeah, that's our tradition.
Did you guys have the pickle? Do you have the pickle thing where there's a pickle ornament that's on the tree and you have to find it?
I know of it, but no, wait, I
Yeah,
don't.
that's another tradition, and I believe that your dad is not. It is not one of the many ways in which he has, tricked you or sold you out. That is an actual traditional thing to get an orange, in your stocking on Christmas. And the pickles, another one of those kinds of traditions. The quarter thing, I'm not sure about that one, but yeah, cool. Well, let us know what some. I mean, we've got. Well, Christmas will be here before the next episode, but still, it's interesting to hear from our listeners and what traditions they might have out there, and maybe if we have time next week, we can share some of those. I'm sure you and I will share some sort of Christmas story next week because it will have just happened, and we always like to talk about how awesome we are and how much our kids love us. So hopefully there's no parenting fails.
Of course not.
Of course not. So let's move on to the other thing that we kind of missed last week, but I think it's okay, and that was a couple of Christmas movie suggestions, especially since a lot of our listeners might want a movie to put on while they're wrapping those presents at the last minute and stuff. That can be quite the ordeal. So why don't you start us off with this one? What's one? We did a Christmas movie and then a not really a Christmas movie. So if you have both, go for it. If not, no worries.
Yeah, I'm gonna cram in 2 Christmas movies because this is gonna be our last one before Christmas. Rise of the Guardians. I don't know why that movie didn't do better. It was released by DreamWorks. I love that movie. It includes Santa Claus, the Sandman, the Easter Bunny, Jack Frost, and I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, the Tooth Fairy. And it's just a fantastic movie. It's a great story, great actors voicing the characters, great villain. I love this movie. Highly recommend you check it out, especially during the holiday season. The other one, this is it. This gets me every time. I can watch this a million times, and the climax gets me. There's a scene with a little girl that gets me, and then, of course, the ending. And it's Miracle on 34th Street. When in the original black and white, not the colored version. That's awful. The newer 90s. I hate that movie. It's awful. But the old black and white movie where the woman comes up and explains that the little girl is Dutch, and as a result of the war, she's an orphan and she doesn't speak English. She just came over from Rotterdam, and I'm sorry, I already explained to her you're not going to be able to talk to her. Sits on Santa's lap. Boom, they start speaking together, Dutch. I'm like, oh, every time, right here. Love it. Love it. And then, of course, the scene, and this is the main reason why I hate the color version, the newer one, is the climax in the courtroom where they don't know. They're not going to win. There's no way. They can't pull it out. Kris Kringle's going to go to jail. And at the last minute, saved by the United States Post Office, who delivers the letters that they receive to Kris Kringle right there in the courtroom. And that's evidence enough for the New York State bar to say, well, if the government believes it's a Santa Claus, then I believe it's Santa Claus. And it culminates with all these bags of letters, thousands and thousands of letters being poured onto the judge's desk, and it's just like, oh, that's awesome, I love it. In the newer one, it's just he holds up a dollar bill and says, the United States government puts out these dollar bills, and in it says, in God we trust. And if they believe in an entity where we can't see it, why can't we believe Santa Claus exists? And I'm like, it's just not nearly as impactful having a dollar bill versus thousands of letters piling up on a desk. Not the same. And then the final scene where the little girl, I can't remember her name, Natalie Wood, she enters the house and they're chasing after her. Why you can't just run in other people's houses? And it's empty and it's for sale, and that's what she asked for Christmas. Exactly. And she thought she wasn't going to get a Christmas present, and it was the friend's neighbor, or the neighbor, and then the mom are like, well, maybe we should buy it after all, and they fall in love, and there's that cheesy, like, 50s kiss out of nowhere. You're like, what? And he says, well, maybe I am that good of a lawyer. And in the corner is the cane that Kris Kringle had carried throughout the whole movie, and you're like, it is Santa Claus. You made a wish come true. Every time. Gets me. Every time. Miracle on 34th Street.
Nice, yeah. Now, I will go in the same vein of the emotional Christmas movie, and for me, it's A Wonderful Life. Love that movie. Love it. I love just the whole storyline, and really along the way you almost forget it is a Christmas movie, until you get towards the end, and it of course has the very famous line of, every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. But I love this story because it's about an everyday man who practices self-sacrifice all the time. Like, everything he does is very selfless. He does things for the benefit of his brother, of the town in which he lives in, of his family. Everything is, he's got these plans of where he wants his life to go, and it always seems that some obstacle, or basically it's not even an obstacle as much as like there's a crossroads and he has to decide which way is he going to go. Is he going to follow his own dreams and desires and ambitions, or is he going to do something good for someone else? And every time he chooses to do something good for someone else. And I think that is such an important message, especially in America, where we tell our kids and everybody else, like, do what follow your dreams and be ambitious and go get them and make your dreams come true and all that stuff. And it's like, what, that's great, and that's a great message, but sometimes you can be surprised at how fulfilling your life will be, even if you don't achieve this fantasy of success or whatever it is that you think is what your life is all about. And you can realize the impact that you make on other people's lives is what makes your life wonderful. And I think it gets me every time. It's up there with Dead Poets Society and Oh Captain, My Captain, when you have these people who come together and they show how much they care for this character and how much they of a difference that he's made in their lives. And it makes me think about the ways that I want to impact others, and I want people to feel that way about me. So every time it gets me, and so I try to watch it every Christmas. So that's my Christmas wrapping movie that I like to watch while I'm wrapping presents.
Definitely a good one. Definitely good. What about your not so really Christmas movie?
My not so really Christmas movie was one I had forgotten it was a Christmas movie, and I have not seen this movie in ages, and that's Gremlins. Did you remember that was set during Christmas?
I only because it was on recently in the background.
Oh yeah.
And I mean I know it's always been Christmas. I just totally forgot about the movie in general. Yeah,
right. It definitely is an 80s movie. Was a pretty good one, though. I mean, you consider the puppetry and everything they were able to do was pretty fantastic. And I remember seeing it as a kid, and it was like, nightmares and like, not in a bad way, but it was like right at that edge of being able to watch it as a kid, because it wasn't super violent and super scary, but it was right there where you were engaged in sort of a fearful kind of way, and completely forgot that it was a Christmas movie, except for there's this one scene where on the record player it's playing the Do You Hear What I Hear? And every time I hear that song, I'm not a fan of that song anyway, but it's sort of got this creepiness to it, and the way that it's playing on the record player, and it's this scene where you're not sure where the gremlin is, so it's got that sort of fantastic horror feel to it. But had forgotten that was a Christmas movie, so that was the one I wanted to kind of throw out there.
Yeah, that's a good one. If I remember correctly, that was sort of the reason why they created PG-13, because it was right there on the cusp, and it really didn't deserve to be R, but it was definitely scarier than your average PG movie. And yeah, I just remember when Phoebe Cates was talking about, her character was talking about her dad trying to surprise him going down the chimney of Santa Claus.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's stuck, and you're like,
that's dark. Awful. Yeah, that's dark. And the other scene where the dog is hung with the Christmas lights, and so they go out and find it, and it's like it's been frozen dead, and it's just like, oh my gosh! Like, I mean, those two things are very almost Stephen King-ish. Those two moments that you have in the movie, and then everything else is, the Gremlins are more comical than they are scary, but there are some moments in there that are just dark.
So, can you, off the top of your head, tell me who wrote that movie?
It's a Spielberg movie, isn't it? So is it Lucas?
He produced it. Joe Dante directed it.
Okay.
You know who wrote it?
No, I do not.
Christopher Columbus.
Really?
a la Harry Potter and Home Alone.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, he likes the Christmas movies then, doesn't he? Because Home Alone has that Christmas thing, and a lot of people, I suppose, could throw Harry Potter in as one of their favorite Christmas movies because there's always a Christmas scene in every Harry Potter movie, and of course that comes from the books too. So, very cool. All right. Well, I think that does it, doesn't it?
I don't want to give.
Oh, you got yours. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to step on you.
I see how it is. I steal your thunder earlier with Guardians, and then you're just like, whatever, dude. Gonna run the show. Cool. I do have a couple here as usual because I can't limit myself. This gentleman directed probably maybe one of the seminal Midwest Christmas stories, and it's a Christmas story, which is not the one I'm going to pick because that's about Christmas. The one I'm going to pick is called Black Christmas, and it's a serial killer movie, slasher flick, set in about I think it was the 70s in a sorority house. It amazes me that Bob Clark directed both of these movies because they're ends of the spectrum. But Black Christmas is a great horror flick that obviously happens right there as on Christmas as the college kids, sorority girls in this instance, are going home for Christmas, but a couple of them have to stay behind. I wonder what's going to happen. Awesome. Another one I wanted to mention was Lethal Weapon. Just a great start to the buddy cop sort of franchises that started popping up in the 80s. At the time, I just forgot his name. Mel Gibson was a nobody, and Danny Glover team up. Obviously, Mel Gibson has a lot of problems now, but back then he was just great in that movie. Just comical action. It all took place around Christmas. Great movie. If for some reason you haven't seen Lethal Weapon, written by Shane Black, you may recognize that name from Iron Man 3. Definitely check it out. Great film. Black Christmas as well. But if you're not a horror fan, I totally understand. And I'll lighten the mood a little with my last one, Love Actually. I love this British comedy. Bunch of stories intertwined that come together at the end. Love it. Check it out. Hilarious. You'll recognize just a ton of British actors in there. A couple Americans. Not that thrilled with the Americans, but the Brits are hilarious. I love it. So check it out. Love Actually.
Very cool. All right. So now we can tease our next week's show, and what you can expect is an end of the year show. So we're gonna look at the best and worst of 2014, and we'll come up with various categories, and we'll try to throw it out there and see what other people think about these different categories and what their best and worst might be. Obviously, one of them is going to be movies, another's going to be comics, and so forth. And so we'll come at you with that next week, and then also we should have this interview. For the Batman versus Dexter, and we'll have that in next week's episode as well, or it might be its own little in between episode. If we have to sit down and record that separately, you might see that come out. So keep your eye out for both of those.
And if I'm not mistaken, go do your homework, and it's Toronto Batman on YouTube.
That's right. Yes, if you want to see some more stuff that Alexander has done, it's Alexander Brovodani, I think is how you pronounce his name, and he plays Dexter in the Batman versus Dexter, but he's also Toronto Batman, if you look that up on YouTube, and you can see some of the stuff that he's done in the bat suit himself. So check that stuff out, and then you'll know what we're talking about as we interview him.
Very cool. And as always, check us out on nerdlocker.com, on YouTube, on Two Nerdy Dads, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm sure I'm missing some, but yes, check us out. Drop us some comments. Let us know what you guys think, what you guys want to hear, all that fun stuff. Until next week, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And have a nerdy week.
Have a nerdy week.